Hi, I'm Peggy with Headshots by Peggy, and today we have another episode of Camera Tips for Actors with John SWANBECK, and you know we're going to have a blast. All right, John, are you ready for this?
I am ready for this and ready for your people.
I am excited. I love that we are finally doing this every month again. It is awesome.
Yeah, my favorite part of the month.
Yeah, mine too.
Favorite thing to do every month.
So tell me, what are we going to talk about today?
What are we going to talk about? Well, there's a number of things we could talk about. I hope I don't look too tired for
You look great.
your peeps. I just did 9 hours of Zooming yesterday and another 4-5 hours of Zooming today. No, 6 hours of Zooming today.
I know you, I told you, I was like, okay, you got 5 minutes and you, from your class to get on with me. I think you, but hey.
I just got out of a coaching.
Yeah.
And I had the classes. So I hit that Zoom wall, the Zoom fatigue that everyone talks about, the Zoom wall. But it's interesting. I found out today, it's one of the good things about it is in a Zoom acting class, you're working with actors from all over the place. I have them from Vancouver and Toronto and Spain and Paris and England and Australia. And someone today joined from East Africa.
Oh, wow.
That's a kick, right?
Yeah.
And then from a different number of different places in the country. But I like that because you really get a sense of, the different places people are from, and I mean this in the best possible sense, all actors are the same. They have the same passion for their art. They're just as driven. They're very idealistic about their art. So it's really great to see. It's great to see that they all have that bond no matter where they're from. So I just finished doing that and we talked a lot about some really interesting things. But I did want to start with a joke.
Okay.
Can I start with a joke?
You can start with a joke.
Okay, let me see if I can get this joke down. So an actress and her character go to couples counseling. And the therapist says, "Tell me why you're here." And the character says, "I don't feel like I'm getting my needs met. No matter how hard I try to be the kind of human being that audiences can relate to, she wants to use me to teach them a lesson. And she's always projecting her own prejudices onto me instead of accepting me for who I am. I feel like I don't exist anymore." The therapist turns to the actress and says, "And how do you feel about what your character is saying?" And the astonished actress replies, "Oh my God, you mean you see her too?" Hopefully it's a little funny, but it's also, I think, thematically relevant because a trap that I think we all can fall into as artists, photographers, directors, writers, actors, is we lay our hands on the work and we have an agenda. We have some sort of an agenda that we want to communicate with our art. And that's great. We're artists. We want to help the world, change the world, teach the world. That comes with the territory. But when actors lay their hands on it and they, have an agenda with their work, it's not going to look real on camera. And we're all obsessed with being real. And so I'm cautioning actors because they're on the front lines. They're the ones that the audience is really interested in. If you took them away, the audience wouldn't be as interested in the directing and this production design and, any of it. If the actors weren't there. And so they're sort of the front woman or the front man of a band. They're the lead singer of a band. And it's really important because they're also portraying human beings. So they really need to be objective with their work and they have to be very careful of that. And when I talk to actors a lot, they've got messages they want to, use their actors to communicate. And they have to be really, really careful because if we're all obsessed with being real, it doesn't come across as real. And so I'm cautioning actors all the time, make sure, you don't have an agenda here, because the camera, we can't lie to the camera, as you and I talk about all the time. We can't lie to the camera, and the camera will see right through it. So the joke is a little funny, but hopefully it's relevant as well. It's always a caution for actors. It's more of a demand on actors than I think on the rest of us.
So we never talk about political things, but you can kind of use that in a political sense, because we live in a very politically charged time right now. And I personally believe that if you have a platform, you should use your platform. In other words, if you're recognizable, if you're, use your social media, use your presence to, speak your truth and, be seen. But that's different, using your platform and using your recognition to, speak and be heard, relevant in this, world that we live in, is different than what you do when you go to work.
Yes.
Because when you're at work, your character, and correct me if I'm wrong, but what I heard is, sometimes an actor forgets that their character doesn't necessarily share their political beliefs or their religious beliefs or their whatever beliefs. And so when you go to work, you need to allow that character to come out and not worry about making your point and using use your platform, use your recognition, use your following, use your influencing on social media. But when you go to work, of course, every actor has a decision as far as if it's something that contradicts their beliefs. I'm not saying that, but you don't push yourself on your character. Let your character be who your character is. Did I understand that? Did I?
Not only understood it, I think you said it a lot better than I did too. I really like the way you articulated it. I think that's just very well put. And that's exactly what I was talking about. It's tough if you're doing, a political story.
Right.
And in the political story, how do you not, how do you be objective when you're doing a political story? It's very tough. I'm not saying it's not tough. I'm just saying be careful, because the audience can tell a mile away. You can be in a political story, but if you're playing something to, because you're laying your hands on something and you want people to feel a certain way about something and you're trying to manipulate them that way, the audience can see right through it.
Exactly. And I think, without mentioning any names, I think we can all recognize that something happened a month or so ago where some actors got together to make a political statement. And on the surface, what they did was a great thing, but everybody was like, oh, that's fake. Like, and that's a great example of, you can't lie to the camera. The camera
Right.
sees what motive is where it's coming from.
Yeah, and I think I love the way you put it. You can't push yourself on the character like that. So yeah, I think, and these days you're right. It's a timely topic, so it's a good thing to think about. That
is a good thing to talk about, because I personally am a huge believer in, if you have a platform, use it. I'm a big, I guess I'm kind of, an activist at heart. Like I've always been the person that stood up for what I believed in, sometimes to my fault. But that's your personal beliefs, not your character's beliefs. And I like that. I like that that's a good thing for actors to remember.
Right. Because it won't be real. I mean, that's the thing. We're all trying to be real with our work, and actors are obsessed with being real, and it won't be real. That's
a great point. I love that.
And I didn't know you were such an activist. That's good to know. It's great to know. I admire that. So if it's okay, I published a couple of things on social media last week, and I thought I'd share them and elaborate just a little bit.
Yes, let's go for it.
There's just a couple of them. The first one is this: just because your character says, "I love you" at only one moment doesn't mean your character isn't feeling love the entire scene. As with any emotion, characters usually speak them once, but feel them the entire time. And you know, actors are really trained to think moment to moment, but, and this is what my classes focused on today and yesterday, was layering. And if you're just focused on moment to moment and you're not thinking about layering, you're going to rob the camera and the audience of the cinematic experience with your work. So because actors are so intensely thinking about, you know, I get to this moment and it's how I play that moment. And so I get to this moment, it's how I play that moment. I get to this moment, it's how I play that moment. So if they get to a moment where they're saying, I love you, or I hate you, for instance, and they're only going to create the love or the hate at that particular moment because they're being in the moment, they're going to miss the idea that the character's feeling love the entire time. They're just not expressing it. And if they want to create a cinematic experience, it's all about layering. And there's another one that I published a couple of weeks ago that goes something like this. On camera, it's not about the moments you play, it's about the layers you create. And if your viewers are trying to create something very cinematic on camera, it's essential that they think in layers and not think in moments. Because layers are what pull the audience in and make the audience think and wonder, and engage the audience. It's probably the most important thing in terms of creating something cinematic, and it tends to be left out of the actor equation. The second one is pause as the character to think a thought before you say it, and not as an actor to feel a moment before you play it. And we were talking about being real before, and actors have a tendency to pause before they play a moment to make it real. And ironically, it ends up not being real because human beings don't do that. And again, you can't lie to the camera. So every time they take a little pause before a line to make it real before they play it, they're actually undermining any chance that it's going to be real. It looks like an actor acting. So their pauses should be when a character is thinking and not when the actor's trying to feel a moment before they play it to make it real. And it's a big mistake actors make. They think the moment's going to be better. And the problem is it's better for them, but it's not better for the audience. And there's a difference between being real and being believable on camera, and there's a difference between something feeling real to an actor and being real and being believable and real for an audience. So that's the second one I published. And the third one I published, and you'll appreciate this being a photographer, listen with your imagination and the camera will see it in your eyes. And for some reason, people loved that one.
I saw that one too. And I was like, exactly. It's so true. I'm going to steal your glory, because that's the one thing I say. If you can feel it, I can capture it. You can't pretend like, let's just say you want a headshot where you're an attorney. You can't be thinking about what you're making for dinner or the soccer game and me capture you as an attorney. You have to be in that. You have to feel that. You have to be at work, you know, you have to be in that moment. And then it shows through your emotions. So the thing that you're feeling, a lot of times when I've got people behind the camera, when I've got people in front of my camera, I'm just like not getting it. And finally I'll just talk to them for a while, because for some reason they're doing their grocery list in their head, or they're worried about what their hair looks like, or they're worried about, is my lipstick on perfect? And that's what I'm seeing. I'm not seeing, and so I'm going to let you tell about your quote now, but I did see that and I was like, yes.
No, and this is exactly how this should go. You're articulating my ideas better than I am. I love the way you put it. If you can feel it, I can shoot it. And I hope that in their headshot sessions, they're not thinking about their grocery list. I can see them thinking about their hair or their makeup, but we've got a real problem if they're thinking about their grocery list.
I don't know. Sometimes I get actors in there and I'm like, where are they? I can't find them, and I'll have to talk to them, and then you see them come back. But, they probably are thinking about their hair or their makeup or their clothes. But like, I'm behind the camera and I'm like, where are you? you know, because we're not connecting. You know, physically I can see them, but we're not connecting. And then once they get there, it's like, oh, there it is, and I can get it.
They're very nervous.
Yeah.
They're very nervous, yes. It's interesting because, and this might be the case, think about it next time you're shooting and you have that happen. What I find with a lot of actors is because their process puts them in their head and makes them think. They're thinking all the time. And because they're thinking all the time, they're not feeling enough. They're not imagining enough. Because their scene analysis process, their process is very, I don't know if it's left brain or right brain, whichever one is the sort of logical, analytical one. That's how actors tend to operate, because their process puts them in their head. So I'll be talking to an actor and they'll say to me, my character's feeling really sad at this moment, for instance. And I'll say, because I can tell from where I'm standing, I'll say, but do you feel sad? Because if you're not feeling it, it's not gonna work. You know, you can't just think that your character is feeling sad, and then in the case of playing a scene, you can't think that your character is feeling sad and then connect with the material and think you're going to create sad on camera. You, the actor, have to feel it. And of course, that they're gonna hear that and say, well, of course, but they don't do it a lot of the time because they're stuck in their head. And like I said, with material, they're thinking about, I'll connect with the material and that my ideas will then end up on camera, but ideas are not choices, and thinking your character's feeling something, as you're saying, isn't your character feeling it, or thinking in a headshot session that you're feeling something isn't feeling it. So I don't know if that's what's going on, that they're stuck in their head. But that's what I experience when I'm working with an actor on a scene. You know, they're thinking the feeling versus feeling the feeling. And I know it sounds very obvious, but it's really incredible how many of them sort of get stuck there. I don't know, next time you do a headshot session, you should probably, I don't know, it'd be interesting if there was a technique you could use.
Yeah.
You know, something you could do to get them out of their head.
Exactly. And I think you're probably right. And I always think that it's either nerves or they're thinking. Another thing actors do in the headshot session is they've got so much pressure. Like, these headshots have to be perfect. I'm spending all this money and this is like this, I've got to have the perfect headshot. And so they're thinking the perfect headshot and it comes off, you know, instead of what it's supposed to, you know, and so sometimes it takes a minute to, you know, talk them out of their head and, you know, calm them down, and then, you know, get into whatever character that is that we're trying to capture.
That's got to be a big part of your job, is that challenge, I'll bet.
Yeah. I joke that I was trained for working with actors because for 28 years I took pictures of 3-year-olds. Just kidding, my actor friends. I love you guys. But, you know, seriously, to get, because actors, they've got so much going on in their head that you got to get them like right here. And it's kind of like a 3-year-old that's like, it's like, no, sit still, pay attention. Let's get into this and let's do this, and quit worrying about getting the perfect headshot. Quit worrying about if your hair is perfect. Quit worrying about your shirt. Those are all my problems. Let's just have fun and do this.
Right. Yeah, that's very interesting. Tell me what you think of this idea. This is an idea I give to actors all the time when they're going to be doing their headshot sessions. And I always say, check with the photographer. I don't know if the photographer would go for this. But when I'm working with an actor and they're in scene with another actor, and they're on camera, but they're in a scene with another actor, and they're in character and they're playing the scene, it's easy for them to stay in character. And obviously their headshots, I think you're a proponent of this, headshots should reflect their audition reels or their demo reels, and the characters in their audition reels should be reflected in their headshots. You know, I guess that's all right. That's the idea.
Exactly. Everything should line up. You know, you should have a headshot. You should have something on your resume that reflects that. You should have something in your reel that reflects that you're that character. And I like that you tell actors that, because I often think I might be a bit crazy, because when I'm having problems getting an actor into a character, I'll say, well, talk to me about what this character does. And then we kind of role play, we kind of make up a fake scene, and, I kind of interact with them as that character to kind of get them there. And that usually gets the actors out of their nervousness, and then they're like, okay, I know how to do this. They think I don't know how to do headshots, but then they do know how to act. So once they realize we're just acting for a still camera, you're still giving me that same emotion. Let me catch it in the right moment. You just keep pouring it out and I'll catch it.
Oh, that's good. That's you're sort of reading my mind. That's where I was going, but you obviously are really good at it. But I always tell actors, check with the photographer, but if you could bring another actor with you,
Oh, uh-huh.
and they were standing right behind the photographer, but I know you're moving and thinking, so you wouldn't want someone so close to you. That's why I say check with the photographer, because you don't want it. The last thing you want to be doing is causing a problem for your photographer. But if they could bring in another actor, ideally speaking, they'd bring in another actor, and the actor would stand behind you so that they're in the camera line, and they get to play a scene together in character.
Uh-huh.
And then when the character's listening, and when the person whose headshot session it is listening and not talking, because you don't want them talking, obviously, that's when you're taking your pictures. So I don't know if
That might work for some people. I think for me, it would cause more of a distraction, because,
right.
but what I do is, I'll get into a scene with them, and then I'll instruct them. All right, the camera is your other actor. Put all that emotion right into that lens of the camera, because in a headshot, they've got to be pouring everything into that, because that way they've got eye contact with the casting director.
Right.
And that's when people talk about your headshots need to pop, that's what they mean. They don't mean you have an orange background or a purple shirt, or, that's not what makes your headshots pop. What makes your headshots pop is when the casting director is going through and they make eye contact with you, and they see their doctor, or they see their mechanic, or they see their mom, or they see their attorney in that headshot. That's what makes it pop. They connect with you. And when your energy is going straight into that camera lens, we're humans, and humans understand eye contact. I think that's probably the most challenging thing about Zoom calls, is we don't get the eye contact, because if I'm looking into your eyes, you can't look into my eyes. Now I'm looking into the lens so you can look into my eyes, but we can't do it at the same time. So I think that's the most challenging thing about right now, is the fact that humans are so intuitive with their eye contact. And that's what makes a headshot pop, is that emotion coming out of your eyes, because your eyes tell. Your eyes are the gateway to your soul, or whatever. There's truth to that. That's where your emotions peek out.
I always knew that you were good with the actual photography part, but I've never gotten a glimpse into your process. And I can see where you're really good with the actor whose headshots you're taking. You have a really good process for getting something out of them, and everything you were just saying about how to work with them and how to connect with them and how to draw it out of them. That's great. They must love working with you. It's a great process.
Well, I think I have fun with it too. But I think that's why you and I, we immediately connected, because you understand things from the point of view of a camera. And
Right.
so many people, even acting coaches and acting teachers, and they don't get that fundamental thing. And it should be 101, because that's your medium, is the camera, the video. How does the camera see you, and how do you look real in front of a camera, and how do you show your emotions as real, and how do you connect to the character, and all those things that we talk about on here.
Right.
And that's why I love having you on. That's why I always say you're my favorite guest to have on, because you talk about something that to me is so basic. But I'll tell on Merrick a little bit. When Merrick and I first got together, he didn't know how to stand in front of a camera. Like, we would be at a red carpet event, and he would do this like really awkward, goofy stance, and I'm like, what are you doing? Um, and I look at other actors because I do red carpet events. Like I'm the photographer for these events, and I'm like, nobody's told them. And some of these people are recognizable. And you're like, how have they been at dozens, if not hundreds of red carpet events and nobody said, you know what?
That's very interesting. That's
You
really
know, they don't understand how they look on camera. And that's so important. And obviously looking in what you look like in front of a video camera and what you look like in front of a still camera are two different things. But we live in a media driven society. So you need to know both. You have to know how you look in front of a still camera, and you have to know how you look in front of a video camera.
Now, was it did you eventually teach him the James Bond in the
I
pocket?
yeah, he's super stealth and super GQ now. He's
Right, right.
quite the but no, it was funny. I was like, what are you doing? He's like, I don't know. And I'm like, that's clear. Let's, and I even teach, and I do this for my clients too. I'm like, hey, when you're at a red carpet, this is how you should stand. Find the camera. When you're in a crowd and people are taking snapshots, be aware. Where are the cameras? You can kind of lean your body in and do different things to make sure, because we all have that friend that posted a picture of us and you're like, oh my God, what are you doing? So always be aware of that camera.
That's great. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think thinking from the camera's perspective um, is really, really important. Like you said, well, it's not just a media-driven world; it's a camera-driven world.
Mm-hmm.
Everything is about the camera, whether you're taking Instagram photos on your phone or you're on Zoom, or everything is the camera these days. And the camera's not just there to record something. It's an aesthetic medium, and you have to think about how you pose and how you look. And then in terms of acting on camera, you have to know how to create cinematically. You have to know how to create from the camera's perspective, which is, sort of what I bring to the table. Is I take the actor's process and show actors how to work with it on camera. But it's essential. It's not there to just record something. And the world that you're recording changes from the time you point a camera at it until it comes out on the other end on a monitor, or the result comes out. It changes. It goes through the camera. It goes through the lens. The camera does something to whatever it is you're shooting, and aesthetically changes it. And you've got to know how to think for it.
Exactly. And photographers understand this. Different lenses put different distortions and different things on people. Now, clearly, you don't have control over what lenses are being used, but you still should be aware so that you have that, idea of what you're doing.
Yeah, and creating cinematically in terms of when I was talking about the imagination, and you put it really well. You also put it really, really nicely. That if actors create more with their imagination and they create more with layers, they're going to look more like they belong in a movie, or look more like they belong on camera. They're going to look more cinematic, and they tend not to create with their imaginations, and they tend not to create layers. And those two things are probably the biggest things that go into making somebody look like they belong on camera, making their work look cinematic. And if they don't think that way, they're going to be flat. Another thing I tell actors, and you can tell me what you think. This plays right into you. I tell actors that when they're in a headshot session and they're looking through the camera and through the lens, it gives their eyes, when they're doing it right, it gives their eyes a really cool quality. We've all seen those headshots where the actor's eyes look different than they do on the person in real life. There's almost a cinematic, like movie quality to it. They have those eyes that just pop. I think you were just talking about it. And I think casting directors and filmmakers look at those headshots and go, wow, this person looks amazing. It's, they're responding to the eyes as you were talking about. And it's because they're looking through a lens and looking through a camera, and they get that movie quality. When then they go into an audition and they're acting a scene. And because actors are obsessed with connecting with each other and looking the other person in the eye and making that human connection, that movie quality goes away. And the casting directors and the filmmakers think, what happened? Where'd it go? And I find that really interesting. So I'm trying to find ways where actors can still do the work they're trying to do with their material and connect with the other actor in the way that they like to, but still be aware of the camera in the way you were just talking about, so that they have those cinematic eyes.
Yeah.
Because we've all seen those headshots where the eyes just look amazing. And then the person does a self-tape, or they go into a room and everyone goes, where'd it go? So I find that very interesting.
Yeah. And I think, I'm all about the eyes. I talk about the eyes all the time, because I feel like that's how you get your headshot to pop. But I think that's right. They need to carry that on with them and make sure that they understand that whether it's headshots or whether it's a scene, if they're flat, it's still going to show in their eyes. Even if they're, doing a scene and it's just all memory and it's not emotion and they're not imagining it and they're not in it, they're not present in the scene, it's still going to show through their eyes. And I like what you say about layers, because humans, we've talked about this before. Who are you? Humans are so deep. There's so many things. We're not just a coach. We're not just, we're not just, for me personally, I'm not just a person that makes vlogs. I'm not just a photographer. I'm a mom. I've so many things that I do. I even prepare food, believe it or not. I'm not a genius in the kitchen, but I make things that are edible. There's that layer to me. There's all these different things that we are as a human. And if your character is just an attorney and doesn't play ball at home with his kid, or doesn't, you know what I mean?
Yes, yeah. And if they're just playing the scene the way it's written, they're not going to have those layers, or they're just an attorney. If someone put a camera on you, the camera would see all of those other Peggies that you were describing. We would not see them, but the camera would. And if the camera can see them, the audience is going to see them, because the camera is just an ambassador for the audience.
Right.
And actors, and I'm always talking about the eyes as being it should be their primary way of creating and communicating. They should think about the eyes first and everything else around it.
Mm-hmm.
So that's something I'm telling actors all the time. It's about the eyes. It's about the eyes. You have to find a way to create so that it ends up being created in your eyes and communicating with your eyes. And using the imagination and layering, the way we're talking about, those are what make something look like a movie. Using the imagination is just another way of layering. So I guess what we're saying is layering is what makes something look like it belongs in a movie, whether it's a still shot or a scene. Layering is what makes it look believable on camera, makes it look real on camera. And if you don't layer on camera, you're absolutely right, it will be flat.
Uh-huh.
There's no way of getting around that. It'll be unless you have some natural sense of layering in your eyes, And there are people that are, I guess, naturals on camera. But I'm telling actors all the time, anybody can learn to create on camera in such a way that everyone thinks they're a natural. None of us was really born to be on camera, but we can all convince the camera we were.
Right.
Layering's essential. If you're not layering, you're going to be flat on camera. There's just no way around it.
Now, let me ask you this. So what if the scene is a very emotional scene? The scene, like if they're going to play this scene, it's going to affect them. You know what I mean? When they get into it, it's that scene where they're going to be affected. Now, in real life, they're going to do maybe a 3/4 shot. They're going to do, this angle, and then they're going to do the close-up. Let's say they do 4 different takes of this highly emotional scene. how does an actor keep that level, keep that emotion, or do they store it up for the close-up and then give it all for the close-up, and then, you know, they can pull it back for the other shots? Or what's your recommendation on that? Because that's something I just personally wonder, and I'm sure there's other people.
That's interesting. If it's a very emotional scene and you're playing it very emotionally in the close-up, that might end up on the editing room floor, because the close-up, you're too close for that kind of emotion. And that happened to me once, where I got a very emotional shot from a close-up, and the DP came up to me and said, "Congratulations, we can't use any of that." It was like the emotion was brilliant in the actor, but it was a close-up, and it was too much. It was upstaging itself and distracting. So maybe the close-up is the one you shoot later, and the more emotional, it's still going to be very emotional in the headshot, but you're tapering it as you get close. And then also, as you're getting closer to the character, the actors should be working more internally. A lot of this layering we're talking about, it's not going to work in a full shot or a wide shot, because no one's looking at the actor's eyes. It's all about the set and the scenery and the blocking. So it's once you start getting into a medium shot, which is what a lot of self-tapes are, a lot of character clips on Actors Access and LA Casting, a lot of demo reel stuff, it's going to be in a medium shot. And we can see layering there in the eyes, but you're not from a wide shot to a medium shot or close-up, you're not going to move any differently. You're not going to have a lot of movement in the wide shot because you have a wide shot. And actors ask me this all the time, because it won't cut together. Then we'll cut to the medium shot or close-up, and it's like, why aren't they moving now? They were just moving a second ago. But in terms of the internal work, the close-up is when we know your character the best, when we get to know your character the best. So I would, work on more and more layering the closer and closer you get. But in terms of something very emotional, you have to be careful in the close-up because it just could be too much. So you have to sort of taper it a little bit. Yeah, close-ups are, the closer you get, the more internal it is.
Right. All right, that's good to know.
Yeah.
And that makes sense, because the closer it is, you're looking at the emotion deep down. You're not looking at the big, over what people would call overacting, or, you want to see it internalized. You want to see the agony or the happiness or whatever that is.
Right.
As a feeling and an emotion.
Yeah, everything is designed to get into the close-up. I remember when I was listening to the creators of Game of Thrones talk, and they were saying for them, it was all about the close-up. All they were trying to do was get to a close-up. Everything else was designed just to get them into a close-up, because that's where the story is told. The story is really told in the emotional story. The character story is really told in the close-up. So I thought that was interesting, because Game of Thrones is such an epic, with incredible scenery and tons of people and amazing camera work, and when you think about it, of course it was a lot of close-ups, but it was interesting that the creators themselves were saying everything is designed just to get to the close-up. I thought that was interesting.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah,
that's good to think about.
Yeah. So I was thinking about Zoom sessions, and I think Zoom sessions, I think, are good and bad. Like there's Zoom fatigue. That's one thing. There's also the idea that we were, like you said, we can't connect with the other person as easily. But I have found that it also works to an actor's advantage, because Zoom tends to place us. We're all kind of grounded in a chair, at a desk, at a table, and a lot of actors aren't moving as much on camera, which is good. You know, they shouldn't be moving. Well, they should move as the character, but not as the actor. So they're not moving as much on camera. And so they're ending, in that sense, they're ending up looking they're looking more real than they might generally do in a, you know, in a regular session. So I like that about it. And I'm actually thinking of, I'm going to be using Zoom and working with it with actors to produce character clips for LA Casting and Actors Access, as long as they have an aesthetically pleasing backdrop. It's not a wrinkled sheet, but it's actually an aesthetically pleasing backdrop, and they have good lighting and good sound. What lighting do you use?
I use some LED lights. They're adjustable. They're up to 1,000 watts each, but they're adjustable, and they're also, the color balance is adjustable. And I'll put down there what brand they are, because I can't think of them right off the top of my head. But we have, you know, this room is our Zoom room, and we have, you know, before that, I just used my studio lights, but now it's like, no, we need an actual, you know, conference room where we do our Zoom calls and so forth. So that's what we do in here. And the thing that I like the best about these lights is you can also control the temperature of the light. Which is color. So you can go from evening to daylight. And so like a yellow to a white. And so that is so important to mess with, you know, to be able to have a decent picture on the Zoom call, because computer cameras have become quite a challenge for me, because they work, you know, it's all automatic settings, and who knows what kind of thought they are, because they're crazy. If your backdrop's too light, then any light on your face blows you out. And it's just, it's been a challenge for me to figure out how to make a computer, you know, image look all right. But these are great because I can adjust them. If my background's a little lighter or a little darker, I can bring the lights up or down. And so, and when I bought them, which is funny because I bought them right as the pandemic was starting, I bought them for portable lights, because you can also use them with batteries, and didn't know that they would be my favorite lights, and didn't know that I would use them for my Zoom calls. But when I purchased them, they were $135 for the set. And a few weeks ago, I was like, I'm going to get another set of these. Like, I love these so much. And I went on Amazon, and they're like $250 now. And I was like, demand. So, which is still a great price. Don't get me wrong. $250 is not a bad price for these lights. I would, if I didn't already have them, I didn't go ahead and buy a second set, because I was like, you know what? These might go back down later. But I wouldn't, like, if you have $250, go buy them, because they're great. But I was a little bit shocked at that they had doubled in price during, you know, and I'm sure it's because so many people are getting these things, so they were able to up. So I'll put the name down there though, and, you know, do a search and you can find something similar, or maybe these will go on sale or back to a normal price. But
I love your lighting. I think it looks really
good. I really love these lights, and you know, we have a couple different, this is where I shoot my vlog, and we turn around, we have another space, you know, where we're sitting on the couch, and we have another space when we're just having, you know, a chat with our friends, if we're having a game night or something. So, but this is our little area here, and these lights, but again, and that's something that, unfortunately, I know everybody's like, I hate for actors to have to invest, but if you're going to have to be shooting your own self-tapes, you need good light. You just do. And I'm sorry. You can do a good light with just, you know, lights that you have, you know, get an umbrella to diffuse them, and, you know, get light bulbs that, you know, aren't yellow, and, you know, you can still do it, you know, really low budget, but you do have to do something, because if you're not lit, it's hard to concentrate. If you're not lit and you don't have good sound.
Yeah, no, you're right. And they have to do it because there's, you know, Zoom auditions. And if they don't think lighting, like you said, they don't think lighting and sound make a difference just because you're on Zoom. I received from somebody, they forwarded me a SAG email with different links in there, advice for this and advice of that for actors. And one of them was how to set up your Zoom room.
Uh-huh.
And when they have SAG events now online, Q&As with casting directors or whatever, they will not let you join if you're on a phone. They won't let you Zoom in on a phone. And they're saying for anything you're doing for your auditions, here are the lights you should use. Here's the backdrop you should use. Everyone's coming down on it. They're going to have to.
Good acting is good acting all they want, but bottom line, humans are humans, and a bad lit, poor sound is going to get ignored. It's just human nature. It's just human nature.
I mean, if they had a badly lit Instagram photo, nobody would really be interested. It's the same thing. But you're absolutely right. They have to. You should, because this is what I was going to say. I'm now starting to find a way where I can use Zoom to create actors' character clips and audition reels.
Uh-huh.
It's obviously not a demo reel where, there's a full set and we're on location. But for Actors Access and LA Casting, those are just character clips anyway.
Uh-huh.
And as long as it is aesthetically pleasing, visually, and the picture and sound are good, and then I would be basically directing their demo reel, directing their audition reel, directing their character clips, for those platforms. So that's something I'm looking into, and I'm starting to do that with actors. And we're designing the characters and everything, and we're really sort of thinking about it like a mini production. But it's interesting, sort of Zoom led to that.
Yeah.
It was being on Zoom led to that. And I was thinking, are you going to get to the point where you're doing headshots on Zoom, where you're going to get so good with the lighting? Is Peggy going to get turn into such a genius with the lighting that she's going to figure out how to do headshots on Zoom?
Peggy just bought a whole bunch of new equipment that is amazing. So I hope that headshots don't ever come to Zoom, cell phone cameras or computer cameras, because they're, I've always had great equipment, but I just upgraded my equipment and it's just night and day. You get a new lens and you're like, wow. So I hope that it doesn't. And that's something that I even talked to Merrick about. I said, I hope that people's standards don't just like, well, this is what we got to work with, so this is what we got to work with. I have, however, done a couple of social distancing sessions where I wear a mask and I'm like, instead of being up in people's face, fixing their shirt and their hair, I'm like, okay, you got a hair here and look here, and, directing them to fix themselves. And, I've gotten pretty good with it. And it's not impossible to do. And I can, do a distancing headshot session, but, I certainly hope people don't lower their standards in headshots, because I just spent a lot of money on some really cool equipment that I'm really proud of.
Just don't be surprised. I've done some in-person social distancing privates, for their auditions, their self-tape auditions, and I have a nice setup with the camera and light and everything, and I've got a mask on, and we have to get nowhere near each other. And then I used to give them the footage on a thumb drive. I send that to them now, we transfer.
Yeah.
But everyone's making the adjustment.
Yeah, we have to make adjustments. And I have a pretty big, you've seen my studio, I have a pretty big space. Okay. And so it's pretty open. We're not like, in a little tiny space.
You're great.
I've got a big space, and, I disinfect everything before you come, and then I disinfect everything when you leave, because I don't want your germs.
Before and after.
Yeah. So, but yeah, it's going to be a learning curve, but we're going to make it, because we're humans and we're creative, and we all want new content. I mean, this has been fun because Merrick and I have watched things that we would have normally never watched. And some of it was horrible, and we've discussed how horrible it was throughout the entire thing, but we still watched it. So I think that's really good. Actors have time to like study things and really realize, wow, I thought that was cool, but now that I see somebody doing that, it's terrible. Or I see what John's talking about. This is how it should be. So
A hint about watching things, viewers and actors.
uh-huh.
At times, you should definitely watch things with the volume muted. If you're an actor and you're not watching some content, film and television, with the volume muted, then you're not getting a full understanding of what works on camera. If you can mute the volume and still see the character and experience what the character is going through, then you know you've created something on camera. And also actors will, when I have them do it, they'll mute the volume and watch things. They'll come back to me the next class or whatever, next meeting, and say, oh my gosh, I didn't realize nobody's moving. Nobody's moving. It's all in the eyes. It's all up here. Nobody's moving. So with all the viewing they're doing, I'm asking, please watch some things with the volume.
Yeah, that's really true. And you've talked about this before. I know you used to give an example about being in Starbucks, the line in Starbucks. Of course, I don't think there is there still a line at Starbucks? I don't think we can do that anymore. I think it's all drive-through. But tell that. I know you've shared it before.
I tell actors that if we can recognize your character in a heart-wrenching breakup scene just as easily as we could recognize them standing in line at Starbucks for coffee, then you know you've got a character. If you can take the character out of the scene and put them anywhere else, and you still see the exact same vivid character, then you know you've got a character. If you can't pass that test, you don't have a character, and it will not be interesting to an audience. I don't care how well you're playing the scene, it'll come across like an actor acting a scene, and it won't look like it's in a movie. Or it's the phone book test. Create your character, use the scene to create the character that you need to create, and then take away the scene and read the phone book. And we should be able to get the exact same character. We won't get everything they're going through necessarily because it's a phone book, but that's the Starbucks test. It's the Starbucks test. Yeah.
And that's exactly what we were talking about. A character should have enough layers to sustain any situation.
Right, exactly. Because how many times in a movie is the character not talking? A lot.
Yeah.
The other way I put it is, imagine the opening credits of a movie and your character wordlessly goes about their day, just getting ready for work or doing, it's a typical opening of a movie. The lead character's getting ready for work or getting ready for whatever, and there's the opening music and there's the opening credits, and they never speak a word of dialogue, but by the time the opening credits are done, we know exactly who the character is.
Exactly.
And so it happened like that. But there are a lot of people actually shooting content on Zoom. The whole Zoom experience is, people are looking for ways to shoot content. I am doing a directing class for a college in the fall, and I'm trying to figure out a way in which the directors can direct the actors, and the actors will end up being the camera person.
Well, I told you I DP'd a little SAG ultra budget project, and it was some friends of ours. They were the actors, and they shot it in their house, and there was 2 other actors that shot in their house, but there was 2 days of shooting that they were like, we can't shoot this, and so they were like, would you, and I knew them, I knew they were being very careful, and they knew us that we were being careful. So I wore a mask and I went over there, and we had the director on Zoom, and I had my camera tethered into the monitor, and we worked, and there was a lot of me taking images of the computer screen, which the editor will put the other actor's image on the computer screen. There's a lot of point of view shots, which would be this would look like the camera shot in the other scene, and there's just a lot of that going on. And it was an interesting story. Obviously it took time. It took place now where everybody was quarantined and, living their life through Zoom. But it's a really interesting way. And I thought, but physically I hadn't done anything in 4 months. And so just being on my feet all day
Right.
for 11 hours and thinking, because you're like, that's a whole different when you're working, which it was exhilarating. I loved it. But I also was the lights, I was sound, I was, I did everything. And the actors were helping, they were running the slate and the clapperboard, and they were, because, just, 3 people, and we were keeping distant and, filming this. And it was quite an adventure. And, it was fun because I love a challenge. I love to make my brain, work. But there were some, lighting challenges and everything else. So I think that you as an actor, I'm talking to you guys, you as an actor, don't say, I don't do that. Don't say, that's not my thing. This is my job. Because if that's just your job, they'll find somebody that's willing to learn how to do the lighting and willing to learn how to put a camera on a tripod and run in front of it.
You're right. They will.
That's what we need now. You've got to be flexible. You've got to adapt. Keep sharp all the time and say yes. And then watch a YouTube tutorial or call a friend and say, okay, now I've got to do this tomorrow. How am I going to do it?
Yeah, well, like I was just saying, I'm teaching this directing class, and the actors who are being directed are going to be the camera people.
Mm-hmm.
It's just the way they go. And we all, we're all foolish if we don't think that there are big budget movies being made now on Zoom. I mean, they're figuring it out.
They're going to figure it out. Yep.
Their equipment's probably, crazy high end, but I'm sure there are movies there have been shows already that were shot on Zoom.
Yeah.
The question, I think, is, will the audience buy it? Will it not work for an audience? I mean, I know like some late night talk shows have worked, that kind of thing, but
Mm-hmm.
I was talking to someone, one of these sort of network dramas shot on Zoom, shot a few episodes on Zoom, and I talked to some people that said it didn't work. So it'll be interesting to see if the audience catches on. But certainly a lot of indie projects like the one you're talking about, everyone's trying to figure out how to make it work.
Yeah.
And still tell their story. I saw a short film that a woman produced last night. Really good actress named Angela Hoover, and a comedian and actress, and now a writer director. And she did a short, and it was all on Zoom, and it was fantastic. The cast was just, it was very small. I think she might have been the only one in it, but it was very well done. So, people are doing it. Indie people are certainly doing it.
I know that a couple of months ago, one of my clients, who's also a writer, he's an actor, but he's also a writer and a director, wanted to enter, I think it was some SAG quarantine challenge, and wanted Merrick and I in it. And so, and our 25-year-old daughter is quarantining here with us as well, and we needed an extra person, and I was like, Ash can do this. It was just a real quick scene, and so we shot our part here, and he shot his part over there, and he had another actor, and and then they edited all together, and I was actually impressed how fun it came out. And it was all different. I should put a link into it just so people can get a kick out of our little short that we made during quarantine.
Was it a couple of weeks ago?
It was, I'm going to say it was like a month ago.
Yeah, because this one was a couple of weeks ago, and she ended up being the audience favorite and the best actress, and but it was just like 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, it's really fun though that they're putting these challenges out, even and because we're all bored, we all want to work.
Well, and like you said, we're humans, and we'll figure it out, and we're creatives, and we need to create.
Yeah.
I completely agree with you that actors are going to need to sort of put aside their, I'm just acting, but, and I need my space just to concentrate, because it's just the nature of what it is.
Yeah.
Do you know what they're doing on soap operas? I'm sure they're doing a number of different things. If there's a kissing scene, they're having the actor's spouse stand in so that the kissing happens between the actor and their real life spouse, who's not going to be in the show, but they're just sort of when they're doing the other half of the scene and covering it. They're bringing in the actor's real life spouse and putting them there so that the actor doesn't need to kiss, someone else.
I heard that. Merrick and I were laughing about that. We were laughing because most of the time when Merrick's acting, they pair him with another Black woman instead of a white woman. I said, so can you imagine the cut to this, you kissing? So I don't think that would work for us. We got a big chuckle out of that. But anyway, I'm always an advocate for, you don't need to kiss anybody. Like, you don't need to kiss anybody, Merrick. Just tell them it's okay. We're really good friends with A. Martinez, who was Cruz on, was it Santa Barbara, or I don't know, one of those soap operas forever. And it's probably not, I probably said the wrong soap opera. But him and his wife, they've been together for a long time. And I always ask her, I was like, how was it in the 80s to be married to like Cruz, like, this big soap opera heartthrob that, even right. Today, you see Facebook posts and I'm like, these people are still in love with his character. Like people get really obsessed with certain characters.
That's great.
And so it was a fun thing to do. I'm always thankful that Merrick's always the cop. He's never like I shouldn't say never, but so far I've been fairly lucky to not have to deal with that.
What was the name of the big movie he just recently did? He played the partner of, there were two cops, but he played, this was just recent.
Oh, Twisted Sister. It was on, yeah.
Yes, he was fantastic.
And Twisted Twins. I don't know why I said Twisted Sister. Twisted Twins.
He was fantastic. Yeah, that was great.
Yeah, that was, and he was a friend of his from the Road Theater. Told him, hey, my buddy's directing this thing, will you be in it? And we didn't even have any idea it was going to be on television. And until like 3 days before it aired, like they sent out this is going to be, and we were like, oh, we didn't even know it was finished yet. So that was fun.
It was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Happy.
Well, John, I think we did it. I should probably stop. You and I can talk all day, as always.
Absolutely. And it would always be fascinating.
We would always think we did a great job, even if no one else listened to us, right?
They like us, and we like them.
Exactly. I think, so I want to let you guys know, next month we're going to do a Q&A, so leave us tons of questions, and I'm going to be asking John questions from you guys, or I'll even answer questions, but I know you're going to have questions for John. So
any questions about the camera, acting on camera, auditioning on camera, doing Zoom on camera, anything about, I bring the camera's perspective to the actor's process and show them how to create cinematic power on camera. So any question will be fantastic. I'm looking forward to that.
Yes, we'll put him on the spot, and we'll have an amazing episode, as we always do. I've already got a couple of questions. People have already started sending them in. So just leave them in the comments or DM either of us. And we're going to put that together for you next month. And as always, we're so thankful that you came to hang out with us. Here's all of John's social media links and websites. Make sure you follow him everywhere. And make sure you follow me everywhere on social media. Make sure you subscribe to my YouTube channel. But most importantly, have an amazing week, and I'll see you next week.
Bye.
That was awesome. That was one of our better ones, John. We always have great ones, but that was good.
That was a lot of fun.
That was fun. I think we were both in good energy today.
I think so too. Now